Good morning, and welcome to Morning Brew on Politics Social. I'm Graham Hughes. It is Wednesday, the 30th of October, 2024. Finally, it's here. B-Day, the big day, the birthday, the budget day. The first in 800 years to be delivered by a lady. So we're not going to talk about what Rachel Reeves is wearing today. If anyone talks about what she's wearing, as opposed to the actual, what's in the budget, they're to be taken to the tower. The tower. I think that's fairly appropriate. So we're just going to talk a little bit this morning about what we would like to see in the budget. So if you would like to join people in the chat here and give suggestions of what would be good stuff to put in there, what you're looking forward to, what you're not looking forward to, etc., all you need to do is slam that subscribe button nice and hard. No, just tap it lightly and wait for 30 seconds and you'll be able to join the chat with everybody else. Newbies are very welcome, but please be respectful. Don't be a dick. Right, okay, we've also got Orion Does Things. Happy B-Day, everyone. Woo! Thank you very much. Member for 4 months. Brilliant. Okay, C Dizzle. Good morning, Graham. Good morning, C Dizzy Dizzle. Johan saying, I really hope the release of the OBR report shreds Jeremy Hunt. Well, apparently Jeremy Hunt was trying to stop the OBR from releasing this stuff about what he'd been up to when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer, so that'll be interesting. Sonic Shadow 191. She's wearing clothes. Good lord. Yeah. It's not so long ago. Well, it is not long ago at all. Amazingly sexist things were said about all women politicians. I mean, this goes back to Nancy Astor back in the 1930s, but even up to quite modern days. Don't forget, it wasn't the women of Blair's government and of the Labour Party in 1997. No, they were Blair's babes. They were called, and then there was some horrible term about Cameron, like Cameron's ladies or something. Cameron's chicks, was it? Oh my god. So, we could really do with doing away with these sexist tropes that we keep getting. But, the people who run a lot of the media and the means of communication in this country are a bunch of weird, sexually repressed boarding school types who, they didn't have the best of childhoods. Let's put it that way. Let's be nice. Let's be charitable. These kids were messed up in turn, as Philip Larkin almost once said. Edward Beale, could Hunt be taken to task for misleading the House? Ooh. No. I don't think he can, but it'd be cool if he was. I'll certainly enjoy that. Oh no, not Angela Rayner's legs, save us, says Shropshire Chris. Yes, indeed. Michael Howard's Ladies of the Night. No, was that right? Was that? I thought that... Somebody said about Michael Howard that he had something of the night about him, and that always sort of hung around him. I don't know if he said later. He might have done. I don't know. The misogynistic and sexist diatribes against Kamala Harris in America at the moment, oh my God, they are off the charts. Like on Sunday at the Madison Square Garden Nazi Fest, that there was talk of her being a prostitute. And having handlers, having pimps, and just, oh my God. Anyway, Ivan starts off the super chats this morning. Thank you very much, Ivan, for that. £5. I know it's wishful thinking in this present moment in time, but the bankers must be taxed properly again. I couldn't agree more. And also, their bonuses need to be capped again. The uncapping of the bankers' bonuses is what led to the credit crunch of 2008, in which the state, the big government, the shadowy big government that rules everything, the deep state government that rules everything, stepped in and saved these banks from going under. And hardly anyone went to jail. Hardly anyone went to jail for literally selling people blag products that were no good whatsoever. And they all got away with it because the government stepped in to save them. The government stepped in to save, not just in this country, but in other countries. They stepped in to save manufacturing, car plants in America. They saved with the big bailout. I mean, and then we saw what happened during COVID when companies couldn't be open. They didn't have any war chest to pay their staff in the interim. And so we had the furlough scheme, which was paid for by the taxpayers, by the government, you know. Another super chat. Thank you very much. Very, very generous this morning. It is a bit of a red letter day. Thank you very much to Scott Walton, or should I say a red box day? See what I did there. Hilarious watching Hunt's pearl clutching over politicians doing politics. Well, indeed. 9 words to do. There's something of the night about him, said of Michael Howard by Anne Widdecombe. Thanks, Drew. Yes, it was Anne Widdecombe who said it. I think that was his political career over, wasn't it? Once you said that, it's a bit like The Weeknd. You do hope that horrific comment about Puerto Rico is the end of Trump. You know, in decades to come, people will still say that was the moment that Trump went to jail for the rest of his life. Johan, Iceland, you should have taken a page out of our book when it comes to bankers. Yes, Johan. Jesus, in Iceland, they fuck around, they did not. Unlike here. Grim Fang says, I'm looking forward to being able to tell the Doomers, to turn to the Doomers and say, I told you so. Yes, I hope so. Viv Burgess, oh God, Graham's at it. Now, what am I at? I don't know. Something of the loony bin about Rianne says to Vendetta. You can't say that. Although I suppose it's not particularly sexist. You can say that about a male colleague as well. Duke, are you scared? Are you fearful? Have our lie? I mean, truth gotten all out yet? I mean, look, you've got these right-wing pundits like Ian Dale, who's so right-wing, he tried to stand as a Conservative MP. And he's going, oh, but the working people are going to be affected by this. Let's get down to brass tacks, okay? If you are fortunate enough to be able to send your child to a private school, you are in the top 7% of the earners of the country, or at least you're in the top 7% of the country. Might not be earnings, might be ancestral wealth, I don't know, but you've got enough money to spend £40,000 a year, 80,000 if you've got 2 kids going to the same school, to send your kid to the posh school. Like, who has that kind of money? Like, down the back of the couch. Like, who has that money spare? That's more than the average wage of the United Kingdom. Like, that's more than people earn in a year, and they're spending it on their kids' schooling, which they don't need to spend it on because schools are free. Did you know that? Did you know that you didn't have to spend money to send your kids? So the idea that these are the people who are being hardly done by the Labour government is ridiculous. And then you've got people who are business owners, and yes, some businesses are struggling at the moment. However, here's the thing, right? I wish it wasn't so. I really wish it wasn't so. But a lot of people who start their own businesses in this country have a bit of capital behind them. That is the sad fact, because as we've discussed on this channel many, many times, if you do not have someone who can fund you to get started, it is very, very difficult to get started in business, especially if you have to put everything on the line. If you look like you will lose your house if you start your own business, because you'll miss a few mortgage repayments and the bank will foreclose your house, take it away from you, and you'll be left homeless, you're much more likely to be an employee than an employer. So as far as like businesses that are struggling at the moment are concerned, this is always going to happen. And it's a bit like going back to the private school thing. Like, private schools, you know, the expense of private schools has gone up, like doubled in the last 20 years. It's doubled in many of these schools. Like, it's gone up by 100%. So then say, oh, by putting VAT on school fees, which is not actually on the school fees, by the way, it's on the schools, but they'll probably pass it on in the fees. It's a ridiculous proposition. A bit like the obstacles to running your own business in this country are not necessarily that you have to pay 2% extra on your national insurance contributions. That's really small fries when it comes to things like business rates, which in city centres are through the roof. Meanwhile, you're competing against what? Amazon, who doesn't have to pay business rates in a city centre to get the footfall and all that, because all their stuff is done online, and they have these big, massive warehouses in the middle of nowhere that they don't have to pay much in the way of business rates on per square meter. You know, that's a square foot, I guess, in this country. But if you want to take over a property in the city centre or somewhere, you're talking like £80,000 a year just for business rates. You know, forget about you paying your employees a little bit more because minimum wage is getting raised. And this is the lie that the right wing always like to trot out. Oh, you can't bring in a minimum wage. This is what we were told in 1997. You can't bring in a minimum wage because then all these businesses will go out of business. And the opposite happened, actually. Between 1997 and 2007, we had a boom. Our economy doubled in size, literally doubled in size in 10 years. I know it was overheated. I know it ended at the credit crunch. But still, it went from $1.5 trillion GDP on average to $3 trillion GDP on average. And it's stayed there ever since. So yeah, this sort of, I don't know, this sort of pearl clutching kind of really gets up my nose. Ivan, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. To be honest, I'm dreading Saturday more than today when we find out who the next clown of clowns is. Oh yes. Is it going to be the degenerate generic or is it going to be the bad Enoch? We'll have to see. Scott Walton, I'm top 2% and find it expensive to send a child to private school. That's how out of touch the Tories are on private school VAT. Well, absolutely. But then, thank you very much for that, Scott. But then 3/4 of all the Tories went to private school. Do you know what I mean? They're all that lot. Well, very, very, very posh and usually on cocaine. If you can afford cocaine, well done. You're in the top 1%. I like the way you look down on the rest of us. Beware the budget pensioners, says Gary. Grimfang999. I'm also looking forward to finally being able to start properly passing legislation. To them, finally able to start properly passing legislation now that the budget is announced. They've done a lot lately, but the legislative process is overdue. I agree. Lucy says, all I want from the budget is money in the pocket, better transport, and getting my ADHD diagnosis quicker. Lucy, I've got some good news, not for you, but for me. Sorry. I've actually got my appointment to get assessed for ADHD. It's in January. So that'll be 8 months. No, sorry. Did I say 8? 18-month wait from when I first went to the doctors and said, hey, listen, my brother's been diagnosed with ADHD. Do you reckon you could see if I've got it as well? And my nephew and literally everyone I know. Because we all tend to hang out together, us neurodiverse people, for some reason. It's probably because we irritate the shit out of people who are, you know, neuronormal or whatever they call them. Neurotypical. Mm. You bloody neurotypicals. But yeah, the idea that the private school VAT is going to be this massive shock to the system for some millionaires. You know, if you're bothered about that, just have another game of tennis with a Russian and get them to pay £50,000 for the opportunity. Sean, I'm late. Are we talking about Cambridge reporting they're short of money? Is it a dig at Labour on VAT on schools? I have no idea. If you're talking about Cambridge University, I've been watching, what did I watch yesterday? I watched a couple of episodes of Ludwig with my mum, and I realised there's going to be a murder every episode. Sorry, spoilers. And it's based in Cambridge, and I was just thinking, like, there's only about 581 murders a year in this country, like in England and Wales. So if Cambridge is having 52 murders, what are we? It makes it the murder capital of the country. I think the same joke was made about the Midsummer a long time ago. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, back onto Cambridge. If Cambridge is struggling for money, that would be because of the Tories' policies, these two dual policies, which were to freeze tuition fees, not give enough, and at the same time, not give enough money to universities from central government to fund the education of state school, well, the British kids, and also the reduction in the amount of overseas students who can come here and study, because the Tories wanted to, first of all, include them in the migration figures, which is ridiculous. They're only temporary. It's like including tourists here. But then they wanted them to piss off once they got their degree, and they weren't allowed to bring their family over, so anyone doing a postgrad's not going to come here. And what was happening in universities is that your foreign students was basically subsidising the domestic students, and the Tories battered away on both of those things. They wouldn't let them raise the tuition fees, and also they wouldn't increase the amount of money coming in from central government. And also, they were trying to bring down the number of people coming from other countries. Great, perfect storm. One thing that was announced this morning as well that I noticed, actually there's going to be £3 billion extra for the armed services for defence, and some of that is going to go into a raise for soldiers, which is going to be backdated to April this year, which is great. I mean, look, we're living in dangerous times at the moment, and I'm a realist about it. I in my heart, I am a pacifist. I would like no money to be spent on defence and wars and ammunition. I don't like giving gun companies money to make armoured killing machines. However, we live in dangerous times, and if Trump wins this election, which he probably won't, but he might try and steal it. If he's successful in stealing the election, then we're in real trouble here in Europe. I can't emphasize this enough, because Putin is mad. He is backed by India, which is incredibly rich and powerful now these days. I know, like, per person it's not rich, but overall it's rich. It's got a space program, for God's sake. And China, incredibly rich, and North Korea, not so rich, but still, evil, and Iran. Well, I shouldn't say a country is evil. The leadership is evil. The people are probably all right. Which provider are you going with for ADHD diagnosis? I have no idea. I can't remember. I'll have to look it up on my phone. Christopher Bowles, they took away the foreign students. Yes, even Yesminster knew that was how universities raised money. Yes, Christopher Bowles, absolutely. I just said that, didn't I? Good luck, Lee. I'm sympathetic, but are we sure pensioners voted leave? Yes. The one demographic that you can look at to see whether people voted to leave or to remain in the United Kingdom, overall, it's not education, it's not wealth, it's not income, it's not the size of your house, it's not the place where you live, it is age. That is the one decisive thing that you can say. More likely than not, if you are over the age of 50 at the time of the referendum, you are much more likely to vote to leave. And if you're under the age of 50, you are much more likely to vote remain. And obviously, that's not everyone. Let me make that very clear. Hashtag not all boomers. But a gargantuan number of that cohort did vote to leave. And, some young people voted to leave and some old people voted to remain. Of course they did. We're not talking about... I love the way people go, you can't say that. Look at this person. They voted to remain and they're old. And I'm like... I don't think what I'm saying is meaning the same to you as what I think I means, I don't think it's... Maybe there's a filter that it's going through. I'm not saying that all old people voted to remain, to leave. It's just, generally speaking, as a cohort, they were more likely to vote to leave. In the same way that, generally speaking, people over the age of 50 will read newspapers. People under the age of 50 tend not to read newspapers. People under the age of 35 tend to go to the cinema. People over the age of 35 tend not to go to the cinema. I know, I'm 45. I still go to the cinema as regularly as I can because, subtitle screenings are a rare art form in this country. But, I know I'm a bit unusual. I know that the usual trend, if you're making a movie and you run into, you do your elevator pitch. Who's going to come and see this movie, Graham? I'm pitching it to 60-year-old women. Okay, but maybe you should make a TV show. Make a TV show, Graham. Make a TV show. We're only interested in 13 to 35-year-old men. That's what most films' demographic are aimed at, unfortunately. I'm not saying that's a good thing, by the way. Chris Gibbs, thank you very much for the £5 super chat, my friend. You can't tugged. You can't tugged till you live. So get this to send this. Really hope that rumours on the raise in earnings cap for current allowers is true. Chris, I really hope that myself. I really want carers allowance to go up as well. Not just a cap on what they're allowed to earn, but also it's like £47 a week, for Christ's sake. It should be £47 a day. It'd be more than that. They're doing the job of a full-time nurse. And you wouldn't pay a full-time nurse £47 a week to live on because no one can live on that. Like, you know, apart from maybe Neanderthal, I really want to have a reality TV show, and it's Neanderthal trying to live off 30p a day. 30p Lee will call it. He's got 30 days and he only gets 30p a day. And that's it. I'm cinema and I go to the cinema. I'm 50 and I go to the cinema session. My point exactly. Yeah. On Golden Bonds, says Lee Corn. Oh my God. I wonder how much of that compensation will pay compensation for gay servicemen discharge. I was discharged in 1976, says Peter. I hope some of that money comes, that the $3 billion extra that's going to defence funding. I hope some of that does go for the compensation for gay servicemen who were sent out of the army for being gay. I mean, nowadays you look at that and you go, what? How can that even possibly be a thing? But it was. And if Trump gets his way, it will be again. You know, they've already gone after trans people in the military in America, getting them banned out the military. So, you know, gay people seem to be the logical next step, as they always are, in these situations where cis, white, old, gruesome billionaires getting power, and they tend to round everyone who's not exactly like them up in one way or another. Pygmalion, I'm 61. I went to see Venom on Saturday. I'm so sorry. Apparently it's a bit shit. Someone get to Graham's attention, please. Carer's allowance is not that low. Lol. It's bugger all. Carer's allowance is bugger all. I know it might not be £47 a week. Oh, there you go. No, it's not Graham. It's £81. There you go. Wow, that's made all the difference. It's slightly more than a tenner a day. So what's that? That's about £11 a day. Great. We almost got through a morning without the dreaded mention of the orange fascists. I did mention the event at the Madison Square Garden at the weekend. Trump or Harris, who do you think will be president? I think Harris will win. And I've said this for a while. I think she'll win the popular vote, and there's a very good chance for winning the Electoral College as well. However, Trump has a lot of tricks up his sleeve. There's a lot of arcane constitutional bullshit in America that is going to allow Republicans who are on his side, and don't forget the guy in charge of the majority leader in the House of Representatives is on his side, and the Supreme Court is on his side on anything. Like, the Supreme Court in America is so corrupted, so evil, it will get down on its hands and knees and do whatever Trump demands of it, which is horrific. Well, at least 6 of the judges will. I don't think the other 3 will. But that doesn't matter because it's a majority vote situation. I don't think that should be the case. I think that the Supreme Court should either be elected maybe, or appointed for so many years, or if you are going to have an appointment, when they are changing the Constitution of the United States of America, which is effectively what they do when they do things like back-healing Roe versus Wade, but something that's been structured in law in America for 50 years, they get rid of that. No, it has to be unanimous. It can't be just a majority verdict. It has to be unanimous. The conservative judges and the liberal judges all have to agree. That would be a much fairer system, because then, to get that kind of level of agreement, you'd have to meet somewhere in the middle. And you can't be extreme. That what we've got at the moment is an extreme MAGA Supreme Court. 44, I'm going to see The Heretic tomorrow. Everyone's telling me like how old people are. I'm 45 and I'm going to go and see what was it? I was thinking of going to see the Apprentice, but apparently it's going to be on streaming. So maybe I'll just watch it on streaming. I don't know if I can be asked going all the way to the cinema. Let me know how The Heretic is. It's the one with spoilers. If anyone doesn't know anything, doesn't want to know anything about The Heretic, it's got Hugh Grant playing a villain in it, playing a very evil man, who puts 2 young religious workers, I don't know if they're Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or something, through a series of weird horror and horrific shit. I think it's kind of a bit like sort of in a way. I don't know. Let me know. Let me know how it is. Biden can do what he wants within the context of his duties as president, says Johan. That is a very good point, Johan, and I really hope that the Democrats have a plan. But as we've spoken about on this channel before, the Democrats and Labour, like, they just, I don't know, it really winds me up that they keep being caught out like a rabbit in headlights of stuff that, the rest of us are seeing coming a mile away. They're going, oh shit, did that just happen? Ooh. Garrett says, I'm off poppy collecting. Some of the bigoted back in my day are doing that. They're not about the Royal British Legion diversity officer. Yeah, Gareth, I'm going to get myself one of the LGBT pride flag poppies. I think they're £12, but I think it's worth it just to make a gammon's head explode. Hey, or go to the Swedish method. This is Puninator, and hold public votes on changes to the constitution. I thought the Swedish method was a sexual thing. No, it's not. The Swedish method. Okay, it's to hold public votes on changes to the constitution. Indeed, Joanna. Unfortunately, Roe versus Wade was not a constitutional issue. If it was, it would have been a lot harder to overturn. An amendment to the Constitution requires approval from all states. First of all, no, not all states. I think it's 37 of the 50 states. I said there's a certain number. But Joanne, you're right. It wasn't part of the Constitution. But by that, I meant it was like settled law. Like, it was law for 50 years that women had a right to an abortion in America because it was part of their freedom under the interpretation of the Constitution and the constitutional right to freedom and bodily autonomy. So they've taken an amendment, they've taken part of the Constitution and changed the interpretation of it. Is that changing the Constitution? Well, if we did that for guns and we did the old joke about, what they really meant is that you're allowed to wear T-shirts and bare your arms. That's what we really meant in the Second Amendment to the Constitution. I don't know if that would go down too well with the Republican voters. Oh, Ivan, thank you very much for the £20 super chat, mate. That is very kind of you. That's very, very kind of you. Despite the correction in the chat, carer's allowance is still nowhere near enough. E.g., my mum is on full-time carer for my autism, my severe mental illness and extensive physical mobility problems. Ivan, I'm really sorry to hear that. My mum's a full-time carer for my dad. All right, Dad, who's in a hospital bed in the lounge over there. He's asleep. He's just snoozing nicely. But yeah, my mum, she works full time and she looks after my dad full time. And it's a lot. It's a lot. And the fact that carer's allowance you can't get it if you're earning too much. You also can't get it, and I've spoken about this before, if you spent too long out of the country before coming back. So get this, you move to Australia or to America or Canada or somewhere, or you move somewhere in Europe to be with your family or to start a business or whatever you're planning to do over there. And then you find out one of your parents is ill. And then you come home to the UK to look after them. And you apply for carer's allowance. They will look at when you entered and exited this country over the last few years. They will add all that up. And if you spent too much time out of the country, even if, and I can't stress this enough, even if all your banking was in this country, all the money that you earned while you were working went into your bank account in this country and you paid tax on it, even if you are PAYE in this country while living abroad, you can't get carer's allowance. I know, readers, because it happened to me. Indeed. It is disgraceful. Craig's getting technical here. It wasn't bodily autonomy, not a thing in the UK. It was an enumerated right, meaning implied, not written, based around the implied right of privacy. Yep, sorry, it was privacy. Privacy, not freedom. Read that amount set aside to get disabled people back into work is less. Sarah said, the amount set aside to get disabled people back to work is less than £20 per person. Sarah, if that's true, I mean, that is just mad, isn't it? And the thing is, like, when we talk about getting disabled people back to work, you've got a few things here, and this is an exhaustive list. It's a very short list. It's just going to be, first of all, giving people the treatment that they need. So getting the diagnoses in, so find out what it is they need. That's number one, as far as I'm concerned, in getting people back to work. But also, we've got to think about how we adjust the workplace to accommodate people who have different disabilities. And, you know, speaking as someone whose partner's deaf, and I mention this a lot, but like she's deaf, and for her, being in a meeting, face-to-face meeting, is actually more difficult for her than being in a Zoom meeting, right? Because in a Zoom meeting, she gets subtitles. And I know the subtitles get things wrong, but generally speaking, it's pretty good, right? Whereas if you're actually talking to someone, it's someone that you don't know, they have unfamiliar lip patterns, they come from a part of the country where they pronounce A's as E's and E's as A's, I don't know, like Scotland, it can be very, very difficult to understand what people are trying to suss out. So you only get maybe half of what they're saying to you in a meeting, which isn't very efficient. It's a much better idea to have things set up for people so everyone can be involved. And now in the company that my partner works for, they actually, even when they're having conferences, they have subtitles coming up on the screen as the person's speaking, which is fantastic. And it's something that we should have everywhere. At the Labour Party conference, they have someone signing, which is great if you know BSL. But if you don't know BSL, what would really help is to have subtitles coming up on the screen. And I only went to one talk. There was only one talk in the whole of the Labour conference that actually had live subtitles coming up on a screen next to where the speakers were speaking to tell you what they were saying if you are hard of hearing. 10% of the country is hard of hearing. And those kind of blocks to people being able to enter the workplace need to be, we need to do something about it. The government needs to step in and say, look, reasonable adjustments can't just be, you know, the bare bloody minimum. We've got to make it so that we don't just make it slightly easier for disabled people to be accommodated in the workforce. We need to make it a lot easier. We need to encourage, you know, and celebrate the fact that we have people who from you know, all different backgrounds being able to work and being able to, you know, do the job that they want to do, the job that they're good at, the job that they are uniquely qualified for, which I'd like to see more of. Sarah says, I have diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, chronic anxiety and depression with a history of self-harm and suicide attempts. Both my GP and mental health doctors have said I won't be able to work. That's fair enough, Sarah. You know, you make sure that you take care of yourself. I hope you're getting the treatment, cognitive behavioral therapy or whatever it is to help you with all that. But you know, this is you know, this channel. We're not the type of people. Oh, you've got to go back to work, even if you know you're dying. You need to go. You need to work, or we're not going. You know, that's not the way it should be. I think that this government, hopefully, you know, will be, and this is what I want, really proactive in helping people and helping people understand the rights that they have. The things that they should expect from the government, from an employer, from anyone else, from the public transport service, a level of service, a level of reasonable adjustments to help people and not make it a demand. You know, hearing these rich old Tories born into ancestral wealth on the radio saying, well, you know, there's a lot of people out of work and we just need to put a stick up them, you know, we'll say, we'll take away your benefits if you don't go back to work. And it's like, if you're off work because you're stressed, how is that helping? You're making people more stressed, you stupid bastards. But yeah, anyway. So anyway, I'm going to just jump into... we're going to go over time here, I'm afraid. Sorry. My fault. Rabbiting on. We're just going to have a quick look at the papers. Southport suspect had ricin poisoning and Al-Qaeda material. Like, this Al-Qaeda material stuff doesn't necessarily mean that the guy was a fundamentalist Muslim terrorist, but he's been done under the terrorism charges. And obviously, the usual ghouls are jumping on this story, as of course they will. Terror manual and toxin found at home. Found this ricin. This was the guy who murdered 3 little girls in a dance studio in Southport over the summer. But yeah, obviously the usual suspects like Nigel Farage have jumped on this. He made a video of himself being a tit. Southport suspects charged with terror offence and producing ricin. Reeves hands 6.7% wage rise to lower earners as millions face painful tax increases. Millions. That's one way of putting it. I mean, I prefer they said as literally 1 million people, the richest 1 million face painful tax increases. Maybe the 1% face painful tax increases. And I don't think they're going to be painful. If you've got that much money, you know, that this is chump change to you. Israel strike on flats in northern Gaza kills at least 93 is on the cover of The Guardian as well. That another horrific story from Gaza. The death toll is well over 41,000 now in Gaza. It's horrific. It's absolutely horrific. And until this bloody stupid election's over in America, there's no end in sight, because they just see Joe Biden as a lame duck who can't actually pass anything through Congress. Southport attacker possessed Al-Qaeda manual. That's from the Daily Telegraph, of course. And then Diwali and Downing Street. That's a nice picture of Keir Starmer there with two ladies from India, I guess. And then we've got how Grumpy got cat. So Grumpy, oh, Jesus Christ. Southport suspect made ricin. And then we've got the Financial Times. UK borrowing costs hit post-election record on eve of Reeves's first budget. But Reeves has tweaked the financial rules. This will be announced later today in the budget. She's tweaked the rules to allow her to borrow more, because you're only allowed to borrow a certain percentage of the GDP, and they've added extra things to the GDP, essentially. I know it's a bit more complicated than that. Ivan, thank you very much. Graham, I'm the opposite to your partner. I have hypersensitive hearing, which means I hear too much. Oh, wow. It's a symptom of my autism, which causes me sensory overload. Sensitivity to noise is horrendous. I'm really sorry to hear that, Ivan. Thank you very much for the super chat. I have become way more sensitive to noise than I used to be when before I don't know whether this is me getting older. I know that some neurodiverse symptoms come out more as you get older. Certain ones do. I think also, since I've been going out with someone who's deaf, I've become a bit more aware about sound, because there's a lot of background noise somewhere. Catherine can't really understand what's going on because your voice gets lost. What little she can hear of my voice with her hearing aids in kind of gets lost in the hubbub. But yeah, I'm finding myself getting like quite a lot more agitated by terrible noise than I used to. It used to be like Bon Jovi and Bryan Adams and stuff and Hanson, but now it's more like, that if there is a particular sound, like I'm having to put earplugs in. I literally carry earplugs with me everywhere I go. Just to here they are. I was gonna pull them out of my pocket, but they're there. I've got these little loop hearing aid things, ear blockers, that you can see them, but it's just like an what you plug in, it doesn't have a wire on it, and that goes in my ear, and I use them a lot now. I use them a lot more than I used to, because I really hate the noise. Certain noises just go through me like never before. Your brain changes as you age, as you change. I don't know, it's just one of those things that I've noticed a lot more recently. Ivan, Stephanie replies, I found that Boots wax earplugs help me with noise sensitivity, for me at least. Christopher says, one question, if you had ricin, why do you use a knife? Weird question, I know, but doesn't make sense to me. I'm hoping this isn't an excuse to close the court for the trial. I don't know. I obviously the guy had serious issues, and he was trying to do some big terrorist atrocity, planning it, and I don't know. I don't know. More will come out in the trial, I guess. Sarah says, it's not fair, Joanna. People with mental health illness should be treated the same as someone with physical illnesses and not automatically assume they will get better. Sarah, absolutely 100%. And this is a huge problem with mental health problems, isn't it? That the way we treat them, because if you've broken your leg, right, that's your leg, it's broken, okay, fair enough, we'll try and fix your leg, and everyone feels sorry for you. Oh, you broken your leg, you could have broken your leg doing something really, really stupid, but people feel sorry for you. If you've got like a mental health problem, a lot of people will first of all shy away. They'll be like, oh, no, just in case. But the other problem is that something that is a mental health problem at the start, you could be waiting so long to get your diagnosis for, say, borderline personality disorder, that by the time you actually get it, that's not the big issue anymore. Now it's anxiety. Now it's some other form of mental health problems, because they can morph, they can change, as like I say, as you get older. And so you're still getting, say for instance, still getting treated for depression, and you're taking medication, and you're getting cognitive behavioral therapy for depression. But by the time you've got that package, it's taking so long, your brain has kind of moved on a little bit, and there's some other problem which has not been addressed, and it's not being helped by the subsequent therapy that you are getting for that, for one particular mental health problem. And that's a huge issue. And how do we deal with that? Well, we get quicker at diagnosing this stuff. There's no reason why someone like me, who clearly has ADHD, should have to wait 18 months for a 50-minute online interview with someone who's going to go, yeah, you've got ADHD. It's mad. It's absolutely mad. Number 3 says, mental health plays very much second fiddle to physical health in the medical profession. The latter is easier to deal with. It is, number 3. And I'll give you an example. Like, you go to the doctors and you say, again, I've got a sore throat. They can go, okay, they can check your throat out, and they say, okay, well, I can't see any of this, that, and the other, so I'm gonna put you on a course of antibiotics for a week. Okay, so off you go. That whole thing has taken about 4 minutes. If you go in to see a doctor and say, doctor, I can't get out of bed in the morning, I'm just not being myself, I have these issues, it's going to take longer than 4 minutes to try and suss out what the issue is. So for a doctor, a GP in particular, it's a lot easier just to say, well, here you go, have some of these pills, they might cheer you up, rather than actually get to the cause of the problem. And there's some that argue that with depression, for instance, there's 2 main kinds, and there's others, but 2 main kinds. There's one which is environmental depression, like something has happened in your life that has caused you to be sad, and your body has responded to the sadness, to the grief, in a way that makes you feel ill, because obviously your mental state has a lot of power over your physical state. And you know what, you need help, but you don't need the same help as someone who is clinically depressed, as they call it, where there's no reason for it. There is literally no reason. Everything's going fine in your life, relatively, everyone's doing all right. And then one day you cannot get out of bed. You just can't. You just cannot face life. And that required a different course of therapy and medicine and whatever than the first one. But like, to get to the nub of what people's problems are takes a while. And that's why I would like to see, if I was in charge, a mental health practitioner, at least one, in every single GP surgery in the country. So, instead of me having to wait 18 months to go to get my ADHD diagnosis, I could go to my local clinic, my local GP surgery, and say, right, I'd like to, book half an hour, or an hour, even better, with the mental health practitioner here. That would really, really help matters. And considering there is this tidal wave of mental health problems in this country at the moment, caused by environmental factors, but also things like recovering from COVID, not just long COVID, but recovering from the whole mental trauma of lockdown and how that affected people differently. Some people flourished under lockdown, a lot of people didn't. Even in the same families, you'd have one person who kind of enjoyed being stuck in the house for months on end, whereas others really didn't take to it very well, to put it mildly. Are you doing a live budget podcast, Graham? Says Steve. Ask Steve. Yes, of course I am. So if you'd like to join me at 12 o'clock today, I will be doing Prime Minister's Questions, the final Rishi Sunak's Prime Minister's Questions, and then the first Labour budget in 15 years, which is immediately flows on from that. So it'll be one show. So please join us for PMQs, or just join us for the budget. I will be staying online and commenting, and you can comment, and we'll have a bit of a chat back and forth. I try not to talk over it too much, because I know that upsets some people. Not upsets, annoys. But yeah, if we can meet back here 12 o'clock today, That'll be awesome, and we'll probably be on for maybe an hour and a half or maybe even 2 hours. So please join us for that. And then 6 o'clock tonight, we've got a special edition of The Intersection with Rachel, and she's going to be interviewing a parent of a trans child and talking about the issues that they've faced and the challenges that they've faced. Just bringing up their kid and loving their kid, and just. It's sad that we even have to talk about this. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, going back so many decades and going, what do you do if your child turns out gay? Nowadays, people go, well, yeah, I'll be like, that's fine. But back in the 80s, oh my God, there's going to be adjustments that need to be made. And it's because of the anti-trans rhetoric of the last few years. Being the parent of a trans child has become increasingly difficult, and we'll be getting into that. Ivan, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. Oh my God, Ivan, you're so generous. Thank you. Cognitive behavioural therapy often doesn't work for autistic people. Myself being a prime example, it's taken years for me to be given the correct treatment. Ivan, nail on the head. That's something I should have made that clear when I was talking about getting people the right treatment. Again, as your brain changes, and no one's the same. No one is the same. And this is like this with drugs for physical problems. Like, it works for some people, it doesn't work for others. Some people will get away with really mild side effects. Some people will get really messed up by the side effects, because we're all different. And when it comes to mental health, definitely finding the right treatment for that person is absolutely critical. And so getting the diagnosis, that's step one. Then getting the correct therapy, getting the correct medication, getting the correct cognitive behavioral therapy or whatever kind of therapy it is absolutely critical for that person, because we're all different. And this is, again, like one of those things in life that is difficult. It seems gargantuan, right? How do we get these bespoke therapies for all these different people, millions of people who need it? But it is possible. Like, there's 8 billion people on the planet. That seems like an insurmountable number, doesn't it? But they've all got names. There's got people who know them. I mean, just break it down. Just break it down. People go, oh God, there's 193 members of the UN. How'd you go to all those countries? Just one by one. That's how you do it. You just break it down. It's something that we need to do. And the more that we do it, again, I think it's going to become a bit of a mantra to this channel. It makes moral sense to do this, but it also makes economic sense to do this. Because if you have people who are well looked after, they have their needs catered for, and there are things that they can do and they want to do. I mean, I'm new. I really hate the idea, and I think it's like a Soviet Union idea of like work for work's sake, making people dig a hole and then filling it in the next day. Pointless work just to say they're doing work. I think that's ridiculous. In this day and age, there's enough ways of creating stuff or doing things, making things work, that can cater for a lot of the population. Obviously not all. Some people are going to be off work for maybe the rest of their lives, and that's fine. That is absolutely fine, because as a society, that's our we all take a part in that. We all take a part in that to help people. That's the whole point of us coming together in societies in the first place, is to help each other. And I hate the triumph of the sovereign individual mentality of the Rees-Moggs and Donald Trumps of this world, and the Elon Musk. I succeeded. Poor old Elon Musk. His dad only had a racist apartheid era emerald mine. I mean, the poor guy. He really did pull himself up by his bootstraps, didn't he? Christ. Anyway, the NHS has adopted EMDR as a therapy despite the results being very mixed and limited in clinical trials. It was adopted because it's really cheap and easy. Yeah, Grimfang, good point, but it works for some people. This is my point about therapy. This is my point about drugs. So, some of it works for some people and some of it doesn't. And you're always going to have that issue. And unless we have that sort of nuanced take on these issues, then we're never going to move on. We need to say, try this, try that, try the other. Find something that works for you. some people really benefit from smoking weed, for instance, if they suffer from certain mental health problems. Other people, it makes their mental health problems worse. And please don't at me, people who are in love with weed and think it's the be all and end all and the panacea and the thing that you should give to everybody because it will cure all their ills. There's no such thing as a cure-all. There's no such thing as a panacea, right? And for some people, if they suffered from anxiety, the weed would make their anxiety worse. It would. I know that it might not have happened to you personally, but there are other people, because it's affecting your brain chemistry, it affects their brain chemistry in a different way to how it affected you. And this is just the way it is. Like, we deal with it. One thing that I will completely 100% agree on is that cannabis should be legalized. I think all drugs should be legalized, to be honest with you. In fact, heroin is on the medical register. You can get prescribed heroin still. No one does it because of the stigma attached to it, but it's still a medicine that's still quite very helpful if you've had a heart attack and you are recovering. Beverly Price, Grimfang, absolutely. I was a therapist with CAMS who only take the most complex cases, then apply a more episodic, simplistic therapy. It creates a revolving door for patients. Yeah, Beverly, I agree. This is why more money needs to be put on it, more research, and more help for people. Make people feel like they're being helped. Make people feel like stuff's being done for them. And it can be a placebo. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you can just go, there you go, have this therapy, have this sugar pill. It'll make you feel better. And it does, because placebos work for certain people. They don't work for others. I don't know if a placebo would work for me. I really don't. Maybe it would. I don't know. It would be an interesting experiment. Anyway, I've gone way over time because we've been talking about one of my pet subjects. Disability rights, mental health issues. I better go now because I'm going to be streaming like all day today. I'll leave you in the capable hands of James O'Brien for a couple of hours. I'm off to make a thumbnail for the next show. Do me right up for it. It's like spectacles for some and blinkers for others, says Billy Kershaw. Yeah, horses for courses. Everyone's different, and just because one thing worked for you doesn't mean it worked for everyone else. And I'll leave you with an anecdote. Again, plural of anecdote isn't data, but a friend of mine who worked in drugs rehabilitation, he said one of the issues that they always had with trying to get people off heroin is that the people who will come in to get people off heroin, generally they were on heroin themselves, ex-junkie, as you'd say. They'll come in, and the issue wasn't their enthusiasm or their way. That was all fine. The issue was that whatever way they stopped taking heroin, that was the only way to do it. That was in their head. That was the only way that anyone could possibly get off heroin. And like with smoking, it's not that simple. Some people can give up smoking stone cold. Next day, I'm never having a cigarette again. Some people need therapy. Some people need nicotine patches. Some people, nicotine patches don't work at all. Just makes them want cigarettes more. Like, because everyone's different. Everyone's different. So it's a horrible expression, but there is more than one way to skin a cat. And for people who have gone through stuff, and I'm not saying that they haven't gone through stuff and done really well for themselves by kicking the habit of whatever it was, just because it worked for them, just because it worked for you, just because it worked for me, doesn't mean that it's going to work for everybody. So let's try and be a bit more open-minded going forward. So on that note, I'm going to say Taral, thank you so much for the enlightening chat. It was really good. I like that. And thanks for the corrections. And Duke saying, shut up, Graham, you've got overtime. All right, Duke. You don't have to stay here, other channels are available. But yes, come back to this channel at 12 o'clock today. We will be doing Prime Minister's questions and the budget. And then at 6 o'clock, we are going to be handing over to Rachel, who is going to be doing an interview for the intersection that should be very, very enlightening and interesting. So please join us for that as well. So thanks very much for watching. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.